Without further ado, we're going to get started, and we're going to kick it off with Brian. He's going to start us off. This is a little unique, guys. We haven't done this before. We've actually split the day into two separate presentations, both on the theme and topic of attribution. Typically, we have one presenter do this, but I didn't want to wait for another 6, because we're booked out for like 6 or 7 months with presenters for every month. I didn't want to wait for another 6 or 7 months to get both of them on stage. So they're being super kind to take their material, condense it, and kind of go through it pretty quickly. There's going to be questions at the end. We're going to do some Q&A, but I'm sure that there's going to be more questions that we'll have time to cover based on all of the awesome content that they're going to be sharing with us. So connect with them after, and then you can ask those questions privately or over LinkedIn. So without further ado, let's welcome Brian on stage, VP of Marketing at Chirp.
Hello. This goes. Ooh, very good. Good reminder. Hi, everybody. My name is Brian. I've never done this before at the Silicon Slopes, but it's great to be here. Really great to be here. I'll get into how I'm not qualified to be here. At the same time, I'm qualified to be here, but we'll get into self-deprecation a little bit later. So we'll start out with ads. Ads are super cool. Marketing attribution's pretty cool. Not, I don't know, it's fine. Making your company money is really cool. Losing your company money is not cool. But if you've been in marketing for long enough, you've done both of those things. So, but it's super cool to ideate, to think about channels, to think about funnel structure, to think about creative ideas, what's brand focused, what's DR focused, what are the emotions that people are experiencing when they see your ads and everything. That's super cool. If you do it wrong, you can really screw the whole business. If you invest in the wrong channel, if you do the wrong things. And some of us did that. Anyone advertise on Snapchat ever? Okay, good idea? No, okay, that's fine. Maybe you liked it, maybe you didn't, but if you didn't have attribution set up, you'll never know. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm glad I get to go first so I don't look stupid after Jeff goes. So this is great. I'm setting the bar. Oh man, that's not formatted correctly. This is okay. No. I got it. This is my fault. This is what I get for using Google Slides. Everyone's on the Microsoft nowadays. So, anyways, marketing attribution. Let me see if the whole thing's like that. Oh, wait a sec. Doop, 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 doop. That's okay. This is fine. It's okay. I prepared. Don't even worry about that. Let's go to this. Michael Scott. Who doesn't like him? Okay, so we're going to be talking about marketing attribution. And what marketing attribution is, if you're not super familiar with it, pretty much it is I am spending my money on a channel or on a type of creative. You can go ahead and, if you want to switch it out, you can do it. I'm going to start riffing. I might go into a stand-up routine if you don't get back fast enough. Babies, when they're born, they're so ugly, Why do they give them hats? They should give them ski masks, So that's my stand-up. Okay, so anyways, marketing attribution. So pretty much just if I'm investing in this channel, if I'm investing in YouTube, if I'm investing in Snapchat, if I'm investing in TV, an email campaign, what these really expensive brand people told us to invest in because it's going to pay off, it's going to be awesome. How do I track that? Because I think all of us will believe like no one's going to be like, oh, like, yeah, a Super Bowl commercial, that's bad for the business. No, that's great for the business. But how great is it for the business? And is your business in a place where it can afford to do something like that? Are you a Pepsi, where you have a consumable product and you're available at all retailers in the whole world? Or are you a Chirp, where you're only available at a few retailers throughout the world and it's not a consumable product? So those are all the things that we're going to be talking about today. And we might watch The Reluctant Traveler if I get done early. Okay, so let's see, the next slide. Oh, what qualifies me to be here? Where do I get off? Why am I here? So, like I said, my name's Brian Nielson. I'm VP of Marketing and Product at Chirp. If you haven't heard of Chirp, it's a health and wellness company. It's a pain relief recovery company based out of Utah. I'm not a founder there. I was the first employee hired there. and I was tasked with starting the marketing side of the business. And we started growing it and growing it and growing it. I helped grow it for 3 years. And then we realized quickly that we had a single product company, and our AOV equaled our LTV, which is a time bomb that is just ticking. And so you need to fix the LTV issue. So I switched to product for a year, and I was not on the marketing side, and it was awesome and way less stressful. And then marketing attribution kind of got a little bit out of control, and I switched back over to now I do the marketing side and the product side. Chirp is I've helped create ads to make $100 million for Chirp. I have failed and wasted a crap ton of money doing things that investing in channels that I probably shouldn't have invested in. I have experimented a lot with different channels and different ads and all sorts of things, and again, I failed. So I've made the company a lot of money. I've done pretty much every marketing position that you could do, that any of you have done. I guess if you're, no, yeah, probably. I've pretty much done everything. Not well. I can guarantee you that. Realistically, honestly, attribution. When Pete reached out to me, I was really surprised. I just made a post on LinkedIn about attribution, how we do it at Chirp. And that's really it. And then I got asked to come here. My specialty is more in just thinking and critical thinking and understanding basic logic of how a business works and being creative and thinking and problem solving at Chirp. And so what I have today is this is how we've solved the attribution problem at Chirp. And we will eventually get to where I can show you a little bit on the screen of how we solve it. Okay. How are we doing over there, Pete? Okay, that's good. You want me to tell another joke? Okay. Here's the thing. I don't really have any other good jokes. The baby one was that was the big one, and it got mild laughter, so I should just stop. Okay, great. So let's just start off like really, really high level. Again, I told you I'm better at thinking than I am at actually marketing attribution. I'm not the person who calls himself a marketer. On my resume, I don't say I'm like a data-driven marketing wizard, ninja, guru. That's not me at all. Not at all. I just understand basic plot that profit. If we're talking about sales attribution, profit equals sales minus costs. And if you can understand that basic principle, then you understand how to think critically, and you understand what tools are out there, you can pretty much figure out how attribution works. Missed this part right here. So attribution. So who's attribution important for? Data-driven marketers, creatives. So there's a lot of creatives out there that'll say like, man, if the CEO, the CFO would just let me invest in this thing, like, we could just kill it. We'd blow it out of the water. And a lot of them don't understand, well, what does that mean on the back end? Like, how much money are you spending on this ad? How much are you spending here and here and here to get all this off the ground? And then what are your COGS? What are your costs? What are the things that you have to cover? And they don't understand that a lot of times. So other people who it's important to, I already said that. The CEO, CFO won't let us invest in brand because they need to see a return, which is true. And again, all of the things I'm saying, there's no correct way to do this. Attribution it's an art more than it is a science. And nobody has microchips in them that says, oh, I saw an email 3 years ago, and then I got hit by an ad, and then I saw a billboard, and then I saw this and this and this. That just doesn't happen yet. And so eventually it will, but it's not a direct science. And the way that I have this set up is specifically for Chirp. But again, if you understand the basic principle of profit equals sales minus costs, then you'll be great. Okay, so let's get going. Again, so this is the perfect situation that we have one dashboard that shows ad spend on each platform and the sales that are attributed to that platform, and it all adds up to 100% of sales. And if you've ever used an attribution platform, or if you've used platform-specific attribution, you know that's not true. So what usually happens is triple whale. So if you get usually one expensive dashboard that shows you how much you spend on each platform, and it's over attributed. And then at the end of the day it says, oh, you've made 180% of what's actually in your bank account. And then you look stupid because you go to your CEO or your CFO or someone important that cares, and you say, hey, like, look at email, we're getting like a 30x ROAS, or look at this YouTube campaign, or look at this Facebook post, it's great. And the CEO says, well, look at the bank account. Like, it's not that. So what that does is it totally decreases the value in any on-platform attribution, and it's only directional, and that's all that it can really help you with. So you look stupid if you go to someone who actually sees the financials on the back end, and you're telling them, oh, we've made more money than is actually in the bank account. So what we're trying to do with this is trying to educate everyone to understand the financials if they're available to you. And in order to do that, you have to understand just a couple things, in my opinion. And again, this is specifically for probably startup companies that are under $50 million a year, where you have a relatively similar contribution margin across all of your product line. But if you know your average order value, if you know your cost of goods sold, and you know your fixed cost monthly, you can actually get pretty close of understanding what your profit is and what ROAS targets you need to have across your company. So the way that we did this here, this is really hard to see, but if you input this data, and I can pass this out if you guys care about this after, but what we did, and this is actually what helped us get on track a lot in the early days at Chirp, is on this column right here, we have our spend levels, and on the top row, we have our ROAS. It goes from a 1 ROAS to a 3.9. It's infinite, but I couldn't fit that on the slide. And pretty much what it says is, if you're talking to anyone and they're like, oh, we need a minimum of a 3x ROAS. It's like, okay, that's great. But what if I could spend $30 million and get you a 2.8x ROAS? Is that acceptable? And this kind of opens the conversation for that. Same thing, if someone's like, oh, someone who, this ticked me off in my early days, we were paying someone to do our ads for us, and the guy drove a Tesla, and I really wanted a Tesla, and he was like, oh, like this is personal vendetta. That's why I'll never get a Tesla. No, just joking. Ben, he's cool. He drives a Tesla. So anyway, and he was touting, oh, we get a 9x ROAS. All these agencies will go out there. We got a 9x ROAS. We get a 10x ROAS, whatever. That's great. Well, how much did you spend? I don't care about your ROAS unless you tell me how much you spent. Because if you are, and let's say, again, if these are your numbers right here, your average order value is $80, your COGS are $20 on average, and your fixed costs are $200, and you're telling me you got even a 10x ROAS, or let's say you got a 3.9x ROAS, but you only spent 20 grand, then if you look at the yellow part, you still can't pay your fixed costs because your level of money that you're actually making is only 38 grand. And so this helps you see really quickly until you're kind of in this white zone right here. This is where you're actually making money. In the yellow zone, you're making money, but you can't pay your fixed costs. So you either need to fire some people, or you need to get something else under control that is fixed and monthly. This red zone is, it doesn't matter how much you spend at a 1.3x ROAS, you will never make money. You are giving things away. So this is just a really helpful, like, oh, cool. If you want to look at a giant chart and then try to base things off that, it's great if you want to just get a read on it. But if you want to look at it every day, it's not super helpful. So inputs that you need to know in order to calculate this at a better rate are daily sales, revenue, and orders. And I can shoot this deck out again if anyone cares about it after. I can shoot it. Daily discounts you're giving, your daily returns, your COGS, your fixed costs, so salaries, rent, etc., monthly fees, agency fees that are monthly, and your variable costs. So your ad spend on Meta, TikTok, everything like that. So this is the more accurate version that we use. These are not our real numbers, so don't try to hold me to that. So what we have right here, and again, this is really far, and I understand you can't really see, but I made a default version of this. Again, I can pass this out if you want it. We have our spend area right here. So this is daily. This is the month of August, and I have daily how much we spent. So look at this. We spent 15 grand on an ad for a commercial during the Olympics on TV. So this is our TV column, our affiliate and influencer column, our agency fees, our email, Google, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, everything. So I can see exactly what I spent every day. And at Chirp, we're switching spend up and down every day depending on Facebook. And if you've dealt with Facebook long enough, you know that it's a fickle mistress. So sometimes you need to tone it down. And if the CEO doesn't understand why, again, this is a great example of like, well, look what happened when we dropped spend like crazy on Facebook this day. Look what happened to profit. Profit actually shot up to a 3.9. So it was better for us that day to decrease our spend on Facebook, let the organic word of mouth revenue come through, and then just chill out on Facebook until the platform restarts and it gets a little bit better. So pretty much how we have it divided, because we sell on web and Amazon. We have our web ROAS and everything, and all of our spend. We have our Amazon spend and ROAS. If you look at Amazon, obviously it's a crazy high ROAS, but most of it's driven by our Facebook spend. So some people call it MERS, or is it MERS? MER? MERS is a rapper. And MER. So yeah, marketing efficiency ratio. That's fine. It's a buzzword acronym. So anyways, what we do is we just have all of our spend lined up with all of our demand. At the end of the day, it gives us a blended profit number. And so our profit number for August was a 3.2x total. We can see by day, because all of this, all of this information we have filtering in through formulas daily. And we have a different one for web and a different one for Amazon. And so we can see daily what our profit is. So we can see, oh shoot, we sent out an email today, and we can see that our profit numbers went up to $8,000. And we can look at that the day previous. Okay, great, we have an email. Our emails are obviously great ways to generate revenue without a lot of costs associated to them. Okay, great, we had an article published in the New York Times, and we paid 50 grand for it. Okay, well, let's put 50 grand and spend for the New York Times articles, and let's see what happens to profit. And that, again, that's a really short-term way to look at things, because obviously if you're in the New York Times over and over and over, it's going to help with your brand, but at the same time, branding and that type of advertising is a luxury for a lot of companies, and they think that that's the way, when if you don't have cash, you're going to go out of business, and it doesn't matter even if you're in the New York Times. You'll just be a more public failure. So, okay, so that is how we line up all the numbers. And I can dive deeper into that, but that'll take longer than you want to see right now. Always happy to talk about it. So then what we line this up with is a post-purchase survey just to double check our work. And we use Bestie. It's a post-purchase survey, and you can customize it, and you can ask whatever questions you want. One of the major questions we ask after someone signs up is, where have you heard about us? And it's a multiple choice question where they can answer. It's not just a one-time thing. Because we know that we've spent a substantial amount on Facebook and Instagram. We have spent millions and millions of dollars and been seen by hundreds of millions of people. So we know that that's going to be really high. We also want to see, where's our organic word of mouth at? Okay, cool, 16% of our total revenue we can just assume is from word of mouth. Obviously not every person that purchases is going to be filling out this survey, but again, if you have enough statistically significant data, you can make assumptions, and that's all the attribution is. So we're just trying to get as accurate as possible. Okay, great. That TV commercial that we launched on the Olympics, great, 8.7%. That's awesome. We didn't necessarily see the return that day, maybe, because you can look at the commercial. Oh shoot, we actually lost money that day. But now what we can do is we can then multiply the percentage of people that said, I saw you on TV, which is 8%, and then multiply that by the total revenue for the month. And if that checks out, and if it's like, hey, we spent 15 grand on TV, but 8% of our total revenue for the month is actually $75,000. And it's like, hey, that was actually a great thing, because people on the back end are telling you what actually got them to purchase. Because again, Facebook's going to say it was them, Google's going to say it's them, everyone's going to try to say it's them. Shark Tank, if you've seen us on Shark Tank, we still have, this is more accurate data, but we still have a lot of people that are saying, oh, we saw you guys on Shark Tank, it's great, it's cool. Influencers, a lot of people have trouble measuring their influencer platform. Not everyone's getting an influencer code and then saying, cool, like I'm going to use my influencer 10 discount code. That just doesn't happen realistically, but people will often say, okay, I saw it through an influencer, I saw it through whatever. So we line that up. You can even do cool things if you want to see more direct influence of your spend. You can sort it by, if you have another question of how long have you known about us, you can say, okay, I want to only talk to people who've known about us for less than a week. You can sort that data, you can take it out, and then you can see where they've heard about you. And then you can say, okay, great. What are the short-term effects that are really helping our business, and what are the long-term effects? You can sort it by the people that have known about us for over a year. Where have they heard about us? So that's great. Okay, so simple math to really just wrap all this up. If your channel spend is less than your post-purchase attributed sales, that's a really good thing. So for example, if Facebook is 10% of your total ad spend, but 80% of the people finishing a post-purchase survey are saying that they heard about you from Facebook. That's a great thing. If it's the opposite way and your channel spend is greater than the percentage of post-purchase attributed sales, that's a very bad thing. So if you're spending 80% of your total advertising budget on Facebook and only 10% of the people are saying, hey, I heard about you on Facebook, that's a bad thing. Again, it's nuanced. So if you are a bigger company that maybe doesn't do a lot of advertising right now just because word of mouth is great, obviously it's going to be different. But for probably most of the companies in here and most of the people in here, this is what you're going to be dealing with. So here's how to quickly test this. Stop spending completely on a channel. If you really want to see where the needle's moving, then cut Facebook completely for a day and see what happens to your profit number for the day. Or double your spend that day. You need to do something that's going to move the needle. A lot of people, they don't have that luxury because they're so dependent on it and they're so strapped for cash. And so if you don't have that luxury, then you need to find someone who understands creative and really understands which channels are affecting which customers on a given level, what's more effective, what's the proper blend of brand advertising and DR advertising, which those people are harder to find. Okay, great. So in the end, who should this be important to? Data-driven marketers, so you can feel confident with your decisions. Creatives, because if you have this data and you see what's actually profitable and what's working, you can use that data to make better creative assets. People who say, the CEO, CFO won't let us invest in brand ads. If you pitch this to your CEO, CFO, let them know that you understand the back end. They're going to be a lot more willing on the front end to give you money if you know what you're talking about. So that is my presentation. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. I am so sorry about those slides. It was so bad. Jeff, come on up. We're excited to have Jeff Larson here. Real quick, just thought on this. What he just shared, like, you can tell there is a lot of deep expertise in here, and we just scratched the surface. And so please, if you're trying to get better at this and you have questions, we'll do a little QA at the end, but connect with him. This is the type of stuff, if you get this down and you're good at it, it is hard for a company to lay you off if you can be showing the impact that you're having. Right? If you want to make yourself much more valuable and to take yourself off the chopping block, get good at this. Okay? Especially you students, like, you want to set yourself apart when you're trying to find new work as you're entering into the workforce. Make this a priority. Anyway, thank you for that. That was awesome. And Jeff, let's go to you.
Okay. All right. So I'm a career academic. Went straight for my PhD. I've been teaching at BYU. Never really worked in the workforce. So basically, I would expect you have one of two reactions. You're like, oh, here's a professor. He must really know what he's talking about. Or he's a professor. He doesn't have anything valuable to tell us, right? And if you have that latter thought, I don't think that's necessarily inaccurate, except that what I have for you today, I do believe is very applicable to practitioners, and that's why I've been really excited to present it to a practitioner audience. So basically, we're going to get at attribution through a field experiment, and the results were really surprising. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I finally was able to do it. But just so we're all on the same page, wait, is that going the wrong direction or something? There we go, yeah, okay. So prospecting and retargeting for the students, for anybody, make sure we're talking about the same thing. So basically a prospecting ad is your typical ad. So you're on Facebook and you say, hey, I want to advertise to the Facebook audience, but I'm not going to advertise to everybody, right? Because I know there's a bunch of people on here who will never buy my product, right? So you're going to set up your ad targeting to target a select people of the select group within Facebook, and then you're going to advertise to them. Some proportion of those people are going to click on your ad, right? Well, when they click on your ad, you're going to say, whoa, that person clicked on my ad. That's a really good signal they're really interested in my product. So I'm going to advertise to them a bunch more. And that's our retargeting ads, right? So you're going to tell Facebook, hey, anybody who has a cookie on their browser or on their phone from having clicked on my ad in the last month, I want to advertise like crazy to that person. You're going to pay extra money to advertise those people because the signal is, hey, I'm much more confident they're interested in my product, right? So that's prospecting versus retargeting. In general in the market, we're very big believers that retargeting is, you get a much better return on your retargeting ad dollars than your prospecting ad dollars for two reasons. Number one is if they've clicked on your ad, there's no other signal, no other behavior, no other targeting dimension you can get on any of the channels that's going to more reliably indicate that that person is interested in your product, right? So your retargeting pool of past clickers is that's gold, right? So that's one reason. The other one is they're lower down in the funnel. They've already clicked on your product. They know a little bit about you. You just got to, if they're lower down in the funnel, it's a lot easier to get somebody to make a purchase if they're down at the bottom of the funnel than if they're at the top of the funnel. So that's just the basic kind of thinking in the market, right? And if you look at my clients' data that we did this experiment on, if you look at their ad spend and their attributed dollars from the channel, you can see that Facebook prospecting is doing well. It's got good returns, but their prospecting returns are off the charts, right? Google, they're losing money on both of them for whatever reason, but they're losing a lot less money on retargeting, right? So they're a lot less unprofitable on their retargeting dollars. So that's what their attribution numbers are telling them, right? And we don't have any reason to doubt that. It looks pretty good, right? Okay, but now retargeting is going away, right? So it kind of went away on mobile devices back in 2001 when iOS 14.5 asked everybody, hey, do you want to let people track you? Do you want to let these apps track you? And most people go, no, why would I want to be tracked? Now Facebook can no longer offer retargeting because they don't know that you've been to these other, the company. So they can't track you anymore. As a result, once iOS 14 was announced and then the next earnings announcement, Facebook's stock price plummeted because everybody realized, wait a second, Facebook isn't letting me retarget anymore. It's not as valuable to me anymore. I'm not going to advertise there anymore, right? So that just shows just how much advertisers value retargeting. Okay, oops, wrong way. All right, so we're going to do a field experiment. Okay, so instead of just trusting the numbers that come from the channels, I want to actually do a field experiment. I'm going to manipulate how much I spend, kind of like Brian just mentioned, right? I'm going to turn off advertising, see what happens. So we did a pretty big field experiment, and I'll just say that field experiments in general, digital marketers are big believers in field experiments because we do A/B testing all the time, right? An A/B test is a field experiment. Basic experiment is you have a treatment condition, control condition. Right, control condition is, this is my current website. My treatment condition is, I'm going to change the button, or I'm going to change my call to action. I'm going to change whatever my messaging on my homepage. I'm going to see which one performs better. That's a field experiment, right? So you'd think, in general, running a field experiment would be, digital marketers would be all over that. Turns out they're not. Whenever the field experiment has to do with the budget and tweaking my ad dollars, marketers get really nervous because they're like, well, we know what's working, so I'm not going to change my advertising because then I'm going to lose a bunch of sales, right? There have been a few semi-famous studies. Here's famous among academics, at least, a study they did with eBay where we had some economists came into eBay and were like, hey, let's test your search ads. And so they shut off search ads in, is this a pointer here? Never mind. Okay, so they shut off search ads, and you can kind of see here's how much I'm spending on my paid ads, and I drop off my paid ads. What happens? My organic ads just shoot up in exactly the same amount, right? So what they showed was eBay, anytime they were advertising, all it was doing was paying money for clicks they were going to get anyway from their organic ads, right? So that is just one illustration of when your native attribution can be really off. Okay, so we're going to do an experiment with an online bed-and-box retailer. Might or might not have been Casper, NDE, I can't actually tell you who the client was, but they spend a ton of money on online ads, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to manipulate my ad spending, but I'm not just going to turn it off for a day. What I'm going to do is actually put people through, a typical experiment is treatment condition, control condition. We had 19 conditions. Okay, manipulating ad spend across 4 different channels, right? So we have, in condition 1, shutting all ads off, right, on all 4 channels. But look like condition 10, we're going to shut it off on Facebook prospecting and Google prospecting. We're going to ratchet it up on Facebook retargeting, and then cut it in half on Google retargeting. Okay, so this is what's known as a factorial design. You like manipulate it in different levels and different across these different conditions, so that at the end of the experiment, I can actually say, I'm going to run an analysis, and I can actually say, here's how much money I sold. Here's how much sales I was able to generate from Facebook prospecting. Here's how much sales was generated uniquely from Google prospecting, etc. Okay, so that's what we're doing. So the way we did this, though, we didn't just, we divided the country into 210 designated market areas. So Nielson, the famous marketing research company, has divided the country into these 210 areas in a way that they don't overlap, and there's very little bleeding over from one region to the next, right? So if you know anything about an A/B test, you have to, if you're in the control condition, you have to stay in the control condition. You don't want to show somebody one version of your homepage and then show them another one. Then you don't know which one's performing better, right? You need to make sure those conditions don't bleed into one another. And Nielsen has designed these regions specifically so that they don't, right? So Phoenix has one region, and then Tucson's another region, right? They're 2 hours away, but there's very few people who are regularly traveling between the regions. So if you're in one region, you're going to be getting one treatment, right? So we basically randomly assigned each one of these areas to one of these advertising conditions. Okay, and then, but as far as the implementation went, if you look at that, that looks like incredibly complicated, right? So if you say, all right, well, for my Facebook advertising, I have 10 regions assigned to condition 4. So in each one of these regions, I have to set up an ad set on Facebook and say, okay, for this region, I'm going to target this region, which Facebook lets you say, I want the Casper something Wyoming region. Here's how much I would normally spend. They're in condition 4. I'm going to cut that in half. Then I do that for the other 9 regions in condition 4, then the other 10 regions in condition 5, the other 10 regions in condition 6, and you go all the way through that, and then I got to move on to Google prospecting. That's incredibly complex, right? Our client found a really easy way to do that. We basically pool all of the 70 regions in those 6 conditions, and then here's how much, based on the population, here's how much advertising they normally get, cut it in half. So all we had to do is 2 ad sets for Facebook prospecting, 2 ad sets for Google prospecting, 3 each for the retargeting channels. So the implementation was actually a lot more doable than it looks like. Okay, so at the end of the experiment, we actually looked at, here's what we told them. Hey, we want you to cut advertising in half in these regions. We want you to, ratchet it up here. And if you look at the numbers, the correspondence doesn't look the best, right? It's like we wanted 100% here, it went up to 122%. We wanted 50%, it was 53% here. Here we want 100%, we only got 87%. It looks like the numbers don't line up that well. But the correlation between any two of these columns is 0.98. So what we were trying to do is ratchet up spending, drop it back, and we were wildly successful, right? We were trying to just manually turn off spending. We were able to do that. So as far as what we were trying to accomplish, we accomplished exactly what we wanted to do, ratcheting up, pulling back spending in the regions that were assigned. Okay, so details about it. So it lasted 2 months over the Christmas shopping season. So basically started mid-November through early January. So we controlled $6 million in spending in such a way that we could actually triangulate what was generating the actual sales, right? So that was about a decrease in about so they would have spent about $9 million on advertising on these channels, but because of our field experiment, we dropped it back. That's not a necessary thing. It wasn't like we had to cut back on spending, but that was part of what they wanted because they were kind of falling behind on orders and they wanted to make sure they didn't get too many sales, that they would disappoint a bunch of customers. Okay, so during the field experiment, if you look at the native attribution on the channels, it looks like Facebook prospecting and Facebook retargeting are doing well, but the retargeting channels did a lot better during that time. But we're not going to rely on this native attribution, right? The whole reason we did the field experiment is so we could actually look at a region-by-region basis and do an analysis and see what really was generating the sales. Okay? So the analysis, I put up literal Greek numbers up here. Apologize for that. But this isn't nearly as complicated as it looks. It's actually a really basic regression analysis. So all we did was we say, okay, so here's one region. Here's their sales, the fluctuating sales. Then we shut off ads. What happened to their sales? What happened here during this portion versus this portion, right? That's the post versus pre, right? So what happened going up to the experiment? What happened during the experiment? Okay, so let's look at the ratio of that. So the data is actually and we actually pooled that across regions. And the reason is we got regions like Chicago that have 3.5 million people, and then we have other regions like Casper, Riverton, Wyoming with only 50,000 people, right? We're not going to compare Chicago with, there's just like the quality of the data is very off. So we pooled it all together, and this is the actual data. Okay, so it's a really simple regression model. We're trying to look at what was the ratio of orders. So in condition 1, orders went up from pre to post. During the experiment, orders went up by like 3%. Okay, in condition 10, it went down by 4%. Right? In condition 9, we got a sales increase of 21%. Right? So we're just going to run a regression model using this as my dependent variable, just plugging in these variables here to see, hey, what actually made sales go up, what made sales go down. Okay, so here's the regression results, and I'm just going to put up a regression, like a regression table, which is going to be like, okay, it's just going to be numbers. So it's going to be numbers, nothing exciting. The story behind these numbers I find incredibly exciting. Okay, so here's the numbers. Right? If you remember back in statistics, your p-value, low p-values are a good thing. That means, hey, we're actually confident this number is real. High p-values, like here, we're not confident that number is any different from 0. Okay, so what do we find? My prospect advertising, we're really confident that actually increased sales. By advertising on prospecting, we got a big bump in sales. On my retargeting channels, both of them, we have no evidence, no confidence that actually increased sales at all. Right? Completely contrary to everything we believe about the value of retargeting ads. Right? So if you're in an economics class right now, you might know what elasticities are, otherwise you probably don't, but these numbers are actually like elasticities that shows you if you ratchet up advertising, here's how much sales is going to ratchet up. These numbers, 9% and 15%, are really, really high. So typically, if you're doing elasticities, you never find advertising elasticities above 10%. These are like 15%. So we're getting like really great results from our prospecting ads, but we're not sure anything's happening on retargeting. So the story I'd love, and then if you can, so because of those elasticities, you can do some counterfactual analysis, and you say, all right, well, if I were to increase my Facebook prospecting spending by $100,000, I'd get an additional 140 orders. The average order value is about $1,000. For these mattresses, so basically $100,000, we get $140,000 in additional revenue. Probably not profitable just because of the cost of goods sold, but so they're probably about where they want to be on Facebook prospecting, maybe overspending by a little bit. But on Google, $100,000 in Google prospecting, we get over 400 additional orders, right? So they're vastly underspending on Google prospecting. Okay, the story I'd love to tell is prospecting ads bring in new orders, but the retargeting ads increase the value of the order, right? Let's say you start thinking about buying a mattress, and then you see all these retargeting ads, and you go, ooh, maybe I'll buy the $2,000 mattress instead of the $1,000 mattress. It would be a great story. It's just not the real story. So the retargeting ads are not increasing the average order value either. So you put those two together, and you should look at the actual sales figures, and it turns out, yeah, prospecting is increasing your sales, retargeting is not. Okay, so and then if you just do the counterfactual analysis, we get similar numbers, not identical to the order numbers, but we get Google prospecting vastly underspending, Facebook prospecting probably spending about the right amount, maybe a little too much. All right, so mechanically, how is this working, right? My attribution numbers coming from all of the channels are, hey, we're making tons of money on retargeting, but you're not making very much money on prospecting, and then we do this experiment, we find the opposite is the case. So the mechanics of this, how is that even happening? How are the attribution channels so far off? So let me just give you like a story about here's 10 people who are seeing my prospecting ads. Okay, on day 1, 3 of those people click on my ad. Okay, but they click on my ad and they go, ooh, I like this, but I'm not going to buy it now. I got to talk to my spouse about this. I have to wait for my credit card to close, right? For whatever reason, they wait a while, and 2 of them a little while later decide, okay, now I'm ready. I'm going to buy the mattress, right? And it was because of that ad, that prospecting ad, that made them buy. Okay. Well, what's going to happen in the interim between day 1 and day 20 is they're going to see a bunch of retargeting ads because they visited the website, right? And because they're thinking about this purchase, they're going to click on them at some point, right? Because they've been thinking about this, and so they're going to click on it. And then when they buy, who takes credit for the purchase? The retargeting ads take the credit. Right? So that's the mechanically of why retargeting ads in this case are vastly overinflated in terms of their credit for the purchase. But the bigger question is, so why? Like, why is this really happening? And this is, I have to kind of infer the reason, right? I can't actually tell for sure, but this is my guess. And this might not be popular among the marketing crowd. But why is retargeting less valuable than prospecting? And this goes against, I think, what I hear from digital marketers is actually consumers at the bottom of the funnel are actually harder to influence than consumers at the top of the funnel. Okay? So say you're at the bottom of the funnel, you know a lot about this product, you've decided you like the product, why haven't you bought it yet? You can't afford it, your spouse won't let you for whatever reason you can't. So there's no ad is going to push you over the edge if you've already know everything there is to know about it and you've decided not to buy it. Right? Another thing is influence, our ad influence, primarily functions through information. Right? They learned something new, they decided that was a product benefit they wanted, and as a result, they bought. Okay, this might be unpopular among marketers because we love to believe that like our ad copy is so creative and so just connects with consumers so well that that's why they're buying. Yeah, that helps for sure, but only if they actually learn something that makes them decide to buy, right? It's not simply, oh, they saw it and they kind of liked it and it built up this brand affinity and so eventually they bought. No, they actually bought. It was a very concerted decision about the information you shared with them. At least that's my inference, right? You could disagree with me. Okay, so implications. So every academic who gives a presentation will always have a slide called managerial implications, which I took off the managerial because what other implications would there be for this crowd, right? If ever you see an academic give a presentation and they have the managerial implication slide, you can probably tune it out because rarely does it actually have any real implications, right? It's like we try to stretch things so far, but it doesn't actually have any real implications. But here I think we do have some implications. Number one is the value of targeting. Okay, so when we go on Facebook, we target our ads primarily because we say we don't want to waste a bunch of money advertising to people who aren't going to buy our product. So the value of targeting comes at, can we advertise to people who are interested in our product? I would say the value of targeting is much more nuanced than that, right? Just because they're interested in my product doesn't mean my advertising to them is actually going to be valuable. Right? They might be interested and have already decided to buy, and so I'm wasting money on that. They might be interested in my product, but they can't afford it, so they're never going to buy either. The value of targeting is finding people who can be influenced by your ads, which is not necessarily the same people who are interested in your product. And this is where, like all impressions are not equal, and I had no idea until I ran this experiment, right? So we do these attribution numbers, and we know they're not perfect, right, Brian? We're like, okay, we're over-attributing everything. Facebook's claiming credit for everything, right? Because they advertise to everybody, and so anytime somebody buys, Facebook's like, I did that, right? So we know they're not accurate, but we tend to trust the relative numbers, right? So it's like, well, this channel told me it's 5x ROAS, this channel says it's 2x ROAS, I'll put some more money in the 5x ROAS, because even though we know it's not 5 and it's not 2, 5 is bigger than 2. So relatively, they're probably about where we want, we'll put some more money there and we can make that inference. And the reason is because the only thing dumber than trusting those numbers is not trusting those numbers, right? You want to make your ad decisions based on no data? That makes no sense either, right? So I was shocked to find that actually there are systematic channels that are way, way off, right? And retargeting is one of those where those numbers are hyperinflated. Right? So we can't just trust these numbers, and sorry to like drop a bomb on you, like you can't trust the numbers. You can trust the numbers even less than you thought, right? And finally, the value of field experimentation, right? We do A/B tests all the time, primarily because they're cheap, and there's no real costs. When you run a field experiment like this, we have two huge costs. One is the execution costs. Not super high because like I did this experiment for free. They didn't have to pay me for my time. The execution costs weren't tremendous. But the foregone sales were really high. Because they dropped sales, my back of the envelope calculation was they'd lost about $6 million in foregone sales, right? So they would have sold at least $6 million more. Of course, they spent $3.5 million less on advertising, so depending on the cost of goods sold, maybe it was actually profitable. But still, if you're just focused on that $6 million like foregone sale number, that's really like, and if you subtract out there's $5.5 million minus the $3.5 million in ad spend, that's $2 million maybe they lost, depending on how you're doing your calculus there, right? So it was that valuable for them. What's the value of a field experiment? Do they get to know something, right? Is that knowledge worth $2 million? I would say yes, because from here we can say, actually, you can cut your prospecting, your retargeting spending by like $1.5 million every month. they'll make up what they lost within a couple months, and they're not going to lose any sales. They're going to cut back on this wasted ad dollars. They make that up really fast. But it's really hard to convince a company when they think they know what they're doing, they think they've got a good handle on their attribution, and you say, hey, actually, let's do this experiment. It's going to cost you a couple $1 million to find out for sure. They're going to be like, yeah, I don't think I value that gained knowledge that much. But I hope at least this experiment, this result shows that, hey, that gained knowledge can be highly valuable. So thanks a lot. I'm happy to take questions now. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Do you mind if I let you?
Brian, come up. If you want to take it, you guys can both take a seat. We'll have you guys share one microphone. I'm going to walk around with this for questions so we can capture it on the video. Really quick, this was a lot, was it not? Not just each presentation individually was a lot. Put them together, it's like, oh man, I need a nap. Like, that is a lot. My hope from this and why I wanted them to come and share these things is that you look at it one and you say, there's some cool new ideas I have on how I can approach and think about attribution that I didn't think about before. And how hopefully some of these new ideas you may have can influence the way that you approach things. I also hope that you looked at it and you're like, dang, I have no idea what that means. And I need to go figure it out. I need to spend more time on that thing. Right? I'm just wrapping up an executive MBA, and we're finishing. I finished my statistics class, and the very first thing I thought when I finished that class, I said, I will never do that, and I will hire someone to do that because I suck at it. Because other people are much more skilled at it. But I also came away having better understanding, even if it's just a little bit better, on how to think about it, how to approach it, and how to manage it. And so my other hope from this presentation, from this discussion, is that you guys think about, okay, maybe I need to invest a little bit more energy, time, and resources to bring other people into my team who are really good at this stuff. Okay? So hopefully you found a lot of value in this. I'm going to pass around the microphone so we can get these questions going. We've probably got time for maybe 4 or 5 questions, depending on how much time we talk on each one. So where was it first? I know there's a hand. Okay, coming over here.
Great, thank you guys. Professor Larson, with the sales data that you were reporting on, is that data pulled from the back end in aggregate sales or specific platform reported data from each platform?
Yeah, it was aggregated sales in the region, right? So remember, we implemented the experiment by region, and so then we triangulated, okay, this was the advertising in that region, here's the sales in that region. So it was just the aggregated sales in that region.
Mr. Chirp, man. So the data that you were pulling on, not your original ROAS screen, the second one with when you had month of August. In your experience, what's the software you're using in the CRM? Is there a software out there that you feel talks enough to each other on each of the platforms to give you a real attributed number? And if not, are you just building those in Excel and creating formulas for those to really aggregate the data correctly? And second follow-up question to that, is there still value in advertising on Meta and spending most of your ad budget there?
Sweet. Woo. Yep. Thank you, Patrick. Short answer, is anyone using Triple Whale? Do you know how much you pay for it? Okay, cool. So depending on how big you get, that can cost you like 20 grand to 40 grand a month, which is pretty cool. But you could also pay a lot of people for 20 to 40 grand a month. So no, there's not a platform that we use because we just built it all in a Google Sheet and we just got the right formulas in there. That being said, and we did use Triple Whale. And there's been a couple others that we've used. But yeah, short answer, I wouldn't. One, because I'm cheap, but also you can get just as accurate, if not more accurate, and I believe ours is more accurate And you can just make that yourself, or I can send it to you and you can tweak it where you want to tweak it. So yeah, that's my short answer. The second one was meta spend. Yeah, so when we actually just did a test last week because the platform was being super wonky, at least on our end, and we chopped meta spend, and our demand fell to a place. We were like still our total demand levels weren't high enough to support by cutting meta completely. Like we went completely black. And so they were not, but I think you illustrated it perfectly. We spend most of our money now on prospecting, and it still is substantial as much as we're like trying to get off the drug. Like it's there, and Meta is still, in my opinion, the best direct performance platform that there is.
All right, got two questions. Brian, first want to say congrats on 1 million Chirp items sold that you talked about.
Woo!
So he did not drop that, but he posted it on LinkedIn, and I stalk him. So just congrats on that. And then the question's kind of for both of you guys. So I create content. We're a production company, and so we create ads. We've actually have made some for Chirp, and I guess I'd want to know from your guys' perspective, how do you decide what to budget for a production or for an ad that you're going to spend? And then is there ever a correlation to what level of budget you spend on the back end? So it's like, hey, we want this much to production to produce it, and then we're going to spend this much to share it.
That's great. I'll try to talk fast so you can. Okay. So we have spent like 150 grand on a commercial before to create it. And it's our if you are like a Chirp fan, it's like our Karen commercial, so we spent a lot of money on that, and it delivered the highest click-through rate I've ever personally seen on an ad on Facebook. It was over 10%, and that was on like qualified buyer prospecting, like audience. Which is, in my opinion, pretty unheard of and like at a high spend level. But it just didn't drive the sales. It just, conversion rate tanked. And as like cheap as the CPMs got, because it was great content, it just didn't work super great. And so part of me is just like, dang, like we spent so much money and like the click-through rate is so good, we need to keep spending on the back end. The other part of me is like, hey, like don't just because you love it. It doesn't mean that everyone loves it and it's really effective for you right now. And if you want the business to stay in business, like Chirp is completely bootstrapped. And so we don't really have the luxury of just like, yeah, let's just spend on cool brand stuff for a long time. Also, like if you might have also seen our video of just a guy rolling in the woods on a Chirp wheel. We just did that internally. We filmed it $500 and it is the most effective video we've ever filmed. And granted, there's a lot of like science that goes into that. It's not just like, oh yeah, use your product in the woods and it'll work. But so I don't think about, I'm a little bit of a stickler on like how much it costs to produce because I know that it can be produced for pennies. And it also depends on like, are you Pepsi? Are you Chirp? Are you whatever? Like cameras are pretty good nowadays. Why we love FilmLab is because FilmLab was like a great like priced value, like same quality as our like $150,000 production, but for much less. At the same time, like internally, we love creating videos internally because we know that we can do it for cheaper. So on the back end, we'll spend it if it's good and if results are good, and if like it's qualified, like we know that this is going to kill it in prospecting and this makes sense and we can see the funnel working. So we did spend on that initial thing for several months to see what would happen on the back end. Just nothing really happened. So we stopped spending, and we're not afraid to kill things if they suck. If that answers the question. Longer than I intended answer, sorry.
Okay, I've got a question over here. I think my question is pertaining to time frame. So, Brian, in your presentation, you were evaluating on a daily basis, and in my company, we have a feeling that our conversion cycle is pretty lengthy. So evaluating on a daily basis seems like a little bit off, if we're not going to see that conversion immediately. So how do you balance that, and especially balancing like short-term versus long-term types of investments in ads?
Absolutely, love it. Great question. Two-part answer. First one is that if you're getting daily sales, like if it's like a long-term and you're like, no, we close like 3 deals a month, that I get that, that's different. But if you're getting daily sales, then you are collecting sales data for people that let's say it's a 3-month cycle. Like you're now collecting data from what your marketing spend did 3 months ago. And so on the back end, why I like the post-purchase survey is we ask like, hey, how long have you known about us? And about 45% of our people have known about us for over a year. About 30% have known about us for less than a week. So if you're focusing on the short term, focus on just the subgroup of less than a week. And then look and see like, okay, where have they seen us? Have they seen us on Facebook, or no, they all saw us from an influencer? Okay, great. Now let me look at the other subset of data of people that have known about us for over a year, so the longer period. And then you can still look at the daily profit numbers, but really like if you have the daily data, then you can have the monthly data. If you have the monthly data, you can have the quarterly data. So that's really just up to you. And again, like I said, this works for Chirp because our sales cycle, again, like I said, it can be a year. 40% is a year, 30% is a week, and the rest is in between there. So you really just have to look case by case. But it is helpful to see kind of on a daily basis what's working, what's not working. If there is a subgroup of people that will buy in a day. If you're not, then change it and don't worry about that. Don't look at it day by day. Look at it month by month. Did I answer that question?
Okay, I have the next question. Thank you both. Awesome presentations. This one's more for you, Professor Larson. So what came to my mind was, I know you're under an NDA of what company you worked with, but do the numbers kind of change at all for different industries? And second part to that is with more high involvement purchases, like maybe a car or a house compared to something like a t-shirt or shoes, do the numbers also change there?
Yeah, so yeah, that's like a philosophical question because I don't have data, right? I would love to run this field experiment for like 500 different product categories and then see like, where is it, where is it different, right? So I would say, yeah, I think you nailed it. I think like a very concerted purchase, like home durable good, $1,000 purchase. I think anything in that range, I think these results are probably pretty similar in terms of, hey, it's really not your retargeting ads aren't doing much because it's a very self-directed, self-guided purchase when you're putting that much money into something. So I would say these results are probably pretty similar in terms of like, yeah, the relative value of prospecting and retargeting. The question is, yeah, what about other products? Are there other products where retargeting is actually going to be really valuable for you, right? And the question is, I don't know. I would say, like, what I found is practitioners are like, well, yeah, that might be for mattresses, but like for my product category, this isn't going to be the case. And I would say, you show me the data, right? You show me the evidence. I think since I've given you evidence that the retargeting isn't going to work, I would say your default orientation should be, well, I'm going to assume my retargeting doesn't work unless I can find evidence that it is working, right? Just because we don't know. All I do know is that if you're doing both prospecting and retargeting, the bias towards retargeting is going to be gigantic, no matter what your product is. Doesn't mean it's not working, right? But it's possible that it's not, right? And so I would say the one product category or the one kind of thought where retargeting might be effective is like default choices, right? Like every day you're going to go out to eat, and maybe your decision of where to eat is really easily influenced by retargeting just because it's top of mind. And it's not about, am I going to buy it or not? It's about, okay, where am I going to eat today? And I've got, a list of potential 10 restaurants I might go to. If I see a retargeting ad for one, that might just, nudge it up enough that I'll go eat there today, right? So that is one situation where I could imagine retargeting ads are going to be really effective. But I would say, yeah, no matter what you're selling, I think your default based on this would be like, I want to make sure my retargeting ads, and I'm not going to believe my retargeting ads are working very well unless I get evidence that they are, right? So I want to actively look for evidence. And the other thing I would say is, so my client afterwards, our recommendation wasn't shut off retargeting ads, right? Because even though we couldn't find evidence they were working, they might be working a little bit, just they were too weak to detect it. So it wouldn't be shut it to zero. It would be turn on frequency caps really aggressively, right? Because if there is some value, just an ad every other day would probably be enough to keep them top of mind. So if you're advertising 5 times a day to somebody in an ad channel that doesn't seem to be effective, that would be an easy way to cut back without risking any foregone sales, is just turn on frequency caps and then turn down the budget, not necessarily shut it all the way off.
All right, we got to close up here. We've had a lot of questions from the fellas. Any female voices that want to chime in on our last question? Okay, we'll close up. All right, everybody, let's give them a round of applause.